Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Inside the Vault, episode number 83, a Carolina Panthers podcast. I am your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me today, Locked On Panthers podcast host, you know him, Mr. Julian Council. Julian, how's it going, buddy?
It's going good, man. Can't complain. Getting ready for a week 4 here as Panthers head up to New England. Different from the last time they went up there, but excited to see
Yes.
what they can do, see if they can get back to 500.
And well, that's the hope, Julian. And we'll get into New England and kind of going forward. But I want to go back if I can. I know you don't like going back as much, so I'll try to keep this kind of brief. But
Sure.
through the first three games of this year, what have you seen from the 2025 Panthers? Obviously, the 0-2 start wasn't what everyone liked, and then you got a 30-0 shutout to Atlanta, which some people are thinking is a big deal, and others not so much. So, what is your thoughts on this team through three games?
Yeah, it's kind of in a mixed bag. I feel like we have to get through the first month and a half of the season to really know what you have here in Carolina, especially with some of the injuries that they've dealt with recently, like Xavier Legette, who may not play again on Sunday. Of course, Jalen Coker
Yeah.
has yet to play, so you don't really know what you have at wide receiver right now if you're Carolina. And then, of course, us on the outside, just as general observers of the team, don't really know what they have as far as the passing game goes. Then you lose Robert Hunt and Austin Corbett. I think offensive line wise are probably still going to be fine if just 1 week is a good sample size there with Chandler Zavala and Cade Mays filling in. Defensively, looked like a lot of the same issues they had last year in week 1 against Jacksonville, and really the same case. I thought they honestly played fine against Arizona in that first half. They gave up that touchdown drive in the third quarter, but then since then they've been pretty damn good, man. You look at the stats so far this season, sure, they're 21st in total defense, but I think we've advanced past that point of ever caring about total defense and how many yards you give up in the game. You
Yeah.
look at EPA, they're seventh in the NFL, they're ninth in success rate, stats that actually tell a far better picture. And then also they're eighth in scoring defense, which remember last year they were god awful, the worst in
God
the
awful.
history of the NFL when it came to that. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. I don't think the offense has been that great outside of that comeback where, I mean, let's be honest, Arizona, they weren't really sending the dogs there in the second half. They allowed Carolina to come back in the game. And special teams actually has been really a plus. I think that was a big differentiator in that game on Sunday against Atlanta. So I'm still trying to wait and see what they truly are. And especially like with the schedule they have right now, like this looks like a point in time where if they are a decent team, then they probably could have a pretty decent record coming out here the first 6 weeks, first 7 weeks really the season before they face off against Buffalo and against who is it? Buffalo, yeah, Buffalo and LA, the Rams, later on in October. So yeah, a little bit of mixed bag and waiting to see who they really are at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, breaking it all down, offense, defense, and special teams, we'll go offense first. I mean, Bryce Young, this is a pivotal year for him. Everyone knows the benching story from last year. We won't regurgitate that here, but obviously
Sure.
through three games, he's had, like you said, kind of an up and down bag. Couldn't wait to turn over the ball to the other team for the first two games, and then Atlanta, it seems like he was efficient and kind of was a game manager, which honestly was fine because that was kind of what the game kind of called for with your special teams and defense kind of stepping up. What in your mind, what does success look like for Bryce Young in 2025 when it comes to okay, he's here for a third year in Carolina, great, but long term, what does success look for Bryce Young in Carolina in 2025? Can he establish himself as that long term quarterback this year?
Yeah, you certainly can. We've seen the best of Bryce, which you saw there in the second half against Arizona 2 weeks ago. Same thing. You look at the second half of last season, the games he played against Kansas City and against Philadelphia and Tampa Bay the first time around in particular. Of course, the last time we saw him at the end of that 24 season was against Atlanta, and he was outstanding in that game. So you know what he's capable of doing, but you also know that he's capable of putting up the stinker he put up in week 1 against Jacksonville. And even looking back at last season, the way he played against New Orleans on the road and against LA, the Chargers, that is at home in week 1 and week 2, we know that he can be that bad. So I still feel like Panthers are trying to figure out who the real Bryce Young is. And I do think that Bryce can be a capable starter in the NFL. I don't know if he necessarily is going to be a true franchise quarterback difference maker. Yeah, now you may get paid 40 million per year to be the
Sure.
franchise guy. It doesn't necessarily mean you are a franchise guy. Like I think Baker Mayfield's a really good quarterback. Is he somebody who's going to really be a long-term difference maker for Tampa Bay in this division? That's the case. But as far as actually contending for a Super Bowl, I don't know about that. But I think Bryce can be a good player for Carolina in the years to come as long as he takes care of the football, which has been really the big bugaboo. And you have these days like on Sunday where, yeah, he went down, held him get down the field for that opening drive touchdown, which is obviously a positive. They're able to cash in on that Mike Jackson interception in the second half. And he only threw for 121 yards, but it was an efficient game. And the Panthers did not turn the ball over offensively, which is a key. So it's always just interesting that you can have the big passing games like Arizona, mainly in garbage time, but then you can come back to next week. And the Arizona game, looking at EPA, was actually a top three game that he's played. And you look at it overall, he turned the ball over and it gave him 10 points. So how could it be on his top three games played as far as looking at the advanced stats? But it was. And then the next week, doesn't really do much in the passing game, rushes for a touchdown, and Carolina wins. So I'm just looking for that consistency. And I think over time, you're going to need more than a guy who can just go out there and throw for 150 yards and a win. It's nice to have that, but that's big of a total team effort. So you'd like to see more boom from Bryce Young moving forward. So it's kind of still, jury's still out to see what's going to happen there, whether he will be the guy long term. I think he's capable of doing it, but I don't think he's ever going to be one of those high end guys at this point in time in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's a good analysis, and I agree with a majority of that. And I would say, obviously, when Jalen Coker gets back, hopefully next week, fingers crossed there, that would also give you another weapon in the passing game. Jatavian Sanders, we know, will be out for a few weeks, but at least against the Falcons, the offensive line minus Robert Hunt, and in my opinion, Cade Mays, in addition to Austin Corbett at the center position, obviously they performed quite well. So we'll have to see how that kind of rolls along throughout the season. Going to the defensive side of the ball. JC Hornet, Derek Brown, everybody knows about them, obviously. Derek Brown is almost like getting like a first round pick back for the Panthers this year. It just absolutely
Yeah.
mollywopping dudes on the defensive line. Brian Baldinger, ex NFL offensive lineman, does a great job with his breakdowns and just Derek Brown has ragdoll strength, which is just absolutely insane. But what I want to focus on is a player that not many people are talking about. Week one, this player was absolutely god awful. You talked about it on Locked On. And then week two, and even better in week three, he looked like a much different player. That would be Trevin Wallace, second-year player from Kentucky. I know the Panthers obviously need more linebacker reinforcements this offseason on defense, and that's obviously not the only position, sure, come the
Yeah.
offseason. But what is your thoughts on this linebacking core long-term this season? Can Trevin Wallace, can Christian Roseboom kind of continue their week three game against Atlanta? Obviously not a shutout. Obviously, we know that doesn't happen every week in the NFL, but
Yeah.
consistency throughout the year.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be still a learning process for a guy like Trevin. He started 8 games last year, and people have to understand that the expectation was not for him to play. If Jack Thompson and
He
Josie
went down.
Jewell, yeah, they don't go down, then like you don't see Trevin Wallace like starting a game last season. Maybe if one of those guys missed a game or two, but there was never an expectation he was going to start 8 games last year. And you saw the ups and downs. And I still think early on this year, as you mentioned, week one, you saw some of the downs, and there's been more ups the last couple of weeks. It's just he's still growing. He's still learning. It's been 11 games. So I think people need to be a little patient. It wasn't like he was a first round pick and that somebody that they expected from day one to come in and to contribute. But I think at the end of the day, we'll find out because it's just you got to have experience. And like Christian Roseboom's not a guy who's played a ton of football as far as being with the green dot. I talked to him in the locker room a couple weeks ago, and he told me like this is the first time he's really been in the middle of the defense, having to call out the signals. And these are guys that he hasn't really been around with that much that long. It's only been an off season and now 3 weeks into this season. So I think this is going to be the group that they roll with. I've had plenty of people, as always, hitting me up being like, oh, with Carolina, go trade for this player or that player. I think they're pretty set on what they have at this point in time. Just look at the salary that they're giving their linebackers. This is not a position group that they're wanting to spend a lot of money on, especially when you look at what they're paying their defensive tackles and they're paying their offensive linemen. This is just going to be one of those spots on the roster where they're just not going to spend a lot of money on. And that's across the league. Like, you're not like, would you rather pay a defensive tackle or a linebacker? Would you rather pay an edge rusher or a linebacker? Would you rather pay a corner or a linebacker? The answer is going to be the other guy. So
Right.
this is what you're going to get. Like, you get what you pay for at certain points in times, and you have to hope to develop, which they talk about being a developmental organization. There's always questions. Does a Juro play the young guys enough? Well, you got a young guy who's about to make his 12th starting at linebacker. So that's not even a full season in the NFL. So give him a little bit of time. And in Roseboom, okay, fine player, I suppose. More of like a rotational guy. I mean, he did play a lot of snaps last year in LA. I don't look at him as being a long-term answer there. So that'll be a position they address next year, but they're not looking at that as being a spot that they needed to really address this upcoming season or this current season. I felt like, and they clearly felt like defensive line made way more sense for them to try go out
Absolutely.
there and to fix edge rusher, team positions that actually impact games at the highest plug and play. And unfortunately, that kind of left linebacker being a little bit exposed. But again, let's see how Trevin Wallace is able to develop. And then how Roseboom's able to, step into that role there in the middle of the defense as time goes on this season.
Yeah. I am a proponent of, I've always been an Ajero Evero fan is not the right word, but I was not a hater either. And so I do think
Defender, maybe.
maybe, but I did think, despite last year, I mean, yes, the injuries were a big part of it, but he did also not have some players that were NFL caliber players on this roster, and so it's good to see. Again, it's one game. It's 30 to
Sure.
nothing, one game. We'll see what happens the rest of the year, but I'm excited to see what this defense can do, especially with maybe without Pat Jones, maybe without DJ Wanham on Sunday against New England. We'll get to see extended snaps for Nick Wharton and Princely Mumielen. So it should be exciting on Sunday in New England. And then in special teams, Ryan Fitzgerald, I was a big fan of him coming out of college. I was really excited about that undrafted free agent signing. And he is a baller, man. These knuckleballs that are getting written by Mike Kay and those guys at the Charlotte Observer and others around the league. And Mike, what did Mike Vrabel say? 2 hours he spent on Tuesday night just
Apparently.
watching over Fitzgerald's kicks. I mean, that's the ultimate compliment right there. When you got Mike Vrabel spending 2+ hours watching special teams film because he's trying to figure out how the heck is the Panthers' first in special teams opponents starting at their 21-yard line on average. So, what do you see? And I know as special teams, you don't have to spend a ton of time on that, but what's your thought on Ryan Fitzgerald in this special teams unit this year?
I mean, obviously he's been great. I know we focus a lot on field goal makes, but clearly this kickoff ability was going to be something that was going to be a big deal when he was going through that battle with Matthew Wright during the entirety of the offseason. And he's been outstanding so far. Like he made a 57-yarder last week, made, I think what they kicked three times, whatever it
Three
was on
times, yeah,
Sunday.
3 times, yeah.
And he was perfect there. I mean, he's been perfect on the season, was perfect last year at Florida State. I thought that going into it, it would make the most sense if he won that job, just being a young guy. They're not an organization that wants to pay a kicker a ton of money. And he was obviously going to be the cheaper option between him and Matthew Wright. And then what he's been able to do as far as these kickoffs has obviously been great because Atlanta could not pick up the ball. And it'll be curious to see how that moves forward into Sunday against New England if they have trouble and then so on and so forth, the other teams remaining on the schedule. So, yeah, he's been great. And it looks like if he continues to make the kicks and he's making so far and continues to have this kind of impact with the kickoffs, so he's going to be the guy here for a long time.
And as an aside, I also do think Sam Martin is an upgrade over Johnny Hecker. We won't talk putter, but I do think Sam
Sure.
Martin has done really well in his 3 games so far, and they're about the same age, if I'm not mistaken. Him and Johnny Hecker. So
I think I think Sam Martin's like 15 days younger or something like that.
yeah, so as a great upgrade there with Sam Martin. If you can kick him Buffalo, you can kick just about anywhere. So I think he's done an outstanding job as well. Definitely an upgrade from Johnny Hecker. But yeah, moving forward as we near our last 10 minutes or so here, because I know I don't only have you for a short period of time. Let's talk about New England, Dallas, the Jets, Miami. These upcoming let's say quarter of games. You mentioned I think the Panthers can get to 5-2 before they play Buffalo. Absolutely. But obviously that would be uh, talk. What would that mean to this fan base to be, let's say, 4-3? Let's say they dropped the Dallas game or something, like 4-3, 5-2.
Yeah.
Going into a team like Buffalo, coming into your house. Julian, I'm not gonna say you might sound crazy. I don't think they're going to beat Buffalo. That's not what I'm saying. But could this be like the Kansas City game last year where they come into your house, you're not afraid, you play up to the competition? Buffalo maybe sneak, it's kind of looking ahead a little bit, not taking Carolina too seriously. And then they play a pretty doggone good game against Buffalo. Even if they lose, that can only be positive moving forward for this team and still trying to establish that culture, that identity under Dave Canales and company.
Yeah, I think what last year they were 3-7 when Kansas City came to
That sounds right.
town.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously it would be a different feel if you're 5-2 and having won five straight games, uh, and you're playing Buffalo, who I don't know who Buffalo has on their schedule upcoming, but I imagine they're going to probably be in a pretty good spot. Like they're clearly going to win the AFC East because that
Yeah.
is a terrible division, and the Panthers get to play the dregs of the AFC East coming up here over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, like the 5-2 thing, sure. Have I seen anything from this team that makes me believe they're going to win five straight games at this point in time? No.
No.
I mean, I've still seen more bad than I've seen good in the first 2 weeks of the season, and then
Right.
with the injuries that they have, like I don't think that these games that they, I'm not going to say they can't win these
Okay.
next
Oh,
four
for
games
sure. For
because
sure.
I felt like going into the season, like yeah, Jacksonville. They sucked on defense last year. You sucked on defense. They have quarterback questions, even though they already paid the guy. You have quarterback questions, even though you haven't paid the guy. And clearly, like, I don't know, Liam Cohen had them prepared to play. Dave Canales didn't have his guys prepared to play. We can argue why that happened. It happened. Doesn't really matter. We're moving on.
Right.
And then week two against Arizona, like, they didn't show up until the second half. So, I thought those are games they could have won. Obviously, I thought they could beat Atlanta. I think they're going to beat them 30-0. No,
No.
I think they can beat New England on Sunday. And if New England goes out there and turns ball over like they did on Sunday against Pittsburgh, then yeah, they're going to lose that game. But Carolina also is capable of turning the ball over
Absolutely.
multiple times. They've already shown that twice this season. And then you have Dallas, whose defense is hellacious, and they made Caleb Williams look awesome last week. Russell Wilson looked like the old version. Let Russ cook
Seattle
a
Russ.
couple
Yeah.
weeks ago. And now he's on the bench. Jackson Dart starting in New York. So that tells you everything you need to know about the Dallas defense into Miami. My God, what is going on there? So, yeah, they can win these games. And look, I'm not going to sit here and not say that I'm also hoping that they get to 5-2 because I just think, selfishly, that's great for me. Being able to
Yeah.
talk about a winning team, excited
Absolutely.
fan base, more views, more listens, more money, ching, ching, ching. Like
Absolutely.
that's what I'm thinking about. So I have a hard time believing they'll be 5-2. Yeah, 4-3. If that's what ends up happening, I think that's the best case scenario, honestly, moving forward. But yeah, if they can be 4-3, 5-2, if it all clicks, and yeah, it'd be great for the fan base because there's been so many seasons where they have just not gotten off the ground. The last 4 years, they've started off 0-2. You go back to last year, what were they? They were 1-2, but then they were
One and
one
two.
and seven or whatever it was,
Yeah.
and then they were 0-6 the year prior. It's just the fact that people can't ever stay excited. People are always excited for football, but they can't stay excited. Like that's what it would mean to the franchise that they actually get to be excited. And then, I mean, let's be honest, that Buffalo game is going to be a Bills home game.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, so
Absolutely.
like it would be great if it could be like more of a 50-50 split. I'm expecting there to be far more Bills fans in there than Panther fans. Like that's just the reality of where our city's at this point in time. It's disgusting. I hate it, but that's how it is. But it would be great just for people to actually have something to believe in. And it would be a nice barometer of like how good this team is. Because I don't think the Jets are good. I don't think the Dolphins are good. I don't think Dallas is good. I don't think New England's very good. I don't really think Carolina's very good either. But if they can beat those teams and they're sitting there 4-3, 5-2, and you're kind of right there in the playoff mix early in the season, mind you, that's a barometer. Like, how good are you actually? You're playing Buffalo at home. You're playing LA as well. That's when you'd find out just how good this team is. And if they lose those games, okay, you still have New Orleans twice. You still have winnable games in the schedule, and you can still maybe get to 8, 9 if things go great and feel good about where this thing is headed. So I think it would be mean a great deal to the franchise. But yeah, focus on beating New England first.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the team at 8 and 9 in my official prediction this year, which again, very realistic possibility. This is before they obviously went 0-2 to start the year, but
Right.
very realistic possibility. But things have to go, like you said, beat the teams you're supposed to beat. Um, as we
Or
kind of
that you can beat. I don't think there's anyone they
can be.
are supposed to beat. Like
Okay, good.
let's be
Maybe
real
New
here.
Orleans,
They,
maybe, but
yeah, New Orleans. There's two games against New Orleans where they should win that game. The rest of them are either you should lose or coin flips.
yeah. Um, I'm gonna pump the brakes here, Julian, as you've done a few times already. What is something we're not talking about enough? It can be positive or negative. That you think Panther fans, Panther listeners on here on Inside the Ball on Locked On, oh, that they need to know that is not getting enough attention. That we need to be paying more attention to as we keep stacking these games and finding out who this team is in 2025.
Huh. I mean, I feel like this week everyone's talking about how well the defense has played. Obviously, you look at the cornerback room. I think JC's been great so far this season. No surprise there. Mike Jackson, you could question, was he going to be solid again opposite of JC? That's
Yeah.
been the case. Shaw Smith Wade. I mean, I think that guy is a heck of a player.
That was a
And
steal.
throughout yeah, I mean, through and that I guess that would be the one. Like he's a guy I don't think gets a lot of praise. I know when you talk about the secondary, you look at JC, you look at Mike Jack, feel good about those guys. You're happy to have Trevon Merrick. People constantly are crapping on Nick Scott because it's
Yeah.
low hanging fruit, and this fan base loves nothing than to keep banging the same drum on one guy, but whatever. But he's been fine so far this season, aside from like that missed tackle and the entirety of
Trevor
the defense
Etienne. Yeah.
looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone looked like crap at the first six quarters defensively. But he's been fine since then. But yeah, I think that Shaw Smith Wade has looked actually pretty good. And like the pick six, that was a horrible throw by Michael Penix Jr., but he had to go out there and make the play. He's been solid so far. And that's a guy who decision for a second year guy who only started like 4 or 5 games last year if he should be stepping into that role and being the starter at nickel. And this team believed in him. And so far, he has played well. So I would think that's the one thing that people probably aren't really focused on is just how they've believed in Shaw Smith Wade. And so far, he's rewarded them with his play.
Absolutely. I think Josh Smith Wade has been a steal for this team. He was one of the guys I admittedly did not know a lot about coming into last year after they selected him from Washington State at cornerback. But he's been a pleasant surprise. I think his transition from year one to year two has been he's taken the full opportunity of those reps and be able to get coached up by the people around him. Um,
Yeah.
Lastly, as we kind of close out here on Inside the Vault, episode 83, Julian Council of the Lockdown Panthers podcast, my guest today here on Inside the Vault. What do you think is going to happen on Sunday against New England? Do you think Panthers are going to get the victory? Do you think they're going to come back to earth a little bit and take an L? What is your best guess that what is going to happen Sunday?
Don't really have a prediction, win or loss. Don't really do those.
Okay, yeah, you didn't have to do that.
Because like, what does it matter? Because
Right, right,
I
yeah,
think there's like the way I look at these games, like there's things that they need to do. I feel like to be in position to win if they do those, and obviously they could win those games. Like I look at New England as a team where, I mean, I obviously I love Drake May. I mean, I'm biased there. I'm not
right.
gonna
Carolina guy,
lie.
yep, yep.
Yeah, I mean, being from Charlotte first and foremost, and then also yeah, being a Tar Heel guy and having watched his entire career, I think Drake's a solid guy. But you look at what they have around him. I mean, who scares you on that offense? I mean, Stephon Diggs. That's not anymore.
Not
And
anymore.
Keishon Butte, like there was a once upon a time at LSU they thought he was going to be the next one. That never really
No, did
happened.
not pan
So
out.
like against this secondary, especially these corners, like, they should have that locked up. Now they've struggled so far against tight ends, and that's who New England wants to feature in that game offensively and Hunter Henry. And if they're able to contain that, I just don't feel like Hunter Henry is going to kill you in this game, especially like where like, if he's the one beating you and no one else is doing anything, I think you're probably fine because it's not like New England's ran the ball super well. So I do like the matchup defensively to where like they're probably not going to get a ton of pressure. They're still last. So that's one area that really hasn't improved so far this season. They did have a nice little game there against Arizona, but overall, that's still not a strength defensively for Carolina. But the good thing is the secondary, at least at corner, has looked pretty good so far this year. So I do think that they actually are in position defensively to be just fine. Obviously, Derek Brown, keep just doing what you're doing, big dog. And then offensively, like I think New England's got some good pieces. Milton Williams, remember Carolina thought they
We
had
thought we
him.
had him.
Instead,
We
New
thought he was in
England's
the
paying him a
bag,
ton of
and
money.
yeah,
Yeah, which is a good thing. Like it's ridiculous. Like I was talking to like the Locked On Patriots guy for a crossover. It's like it's ridiculous that he's getting paid more money than Derek Brown. Like, come
you
on. Like,
can't.
does
That
anyone
does
in the
not. That
NFL
won't
think
go
Milton Williams
over.
is
That wouldn't go over well. No.
a no, like, does anyone really think he's a better player than Derek Brown? Like, I understand how contracts work. When did Derek get paid last offseason? When did Milton get paid this offseason coming off Super Bowl? Blah, blah, blah. Understand all of it. But like, they got a good defense. If Christian Gonzalez plays, obviously, that's something to look out for. Like, McMillan, he's going to play. Leggett probably won't play really have practiced all week because he had the birth of his child, which obviously way more important than football. Bryson Tremaine, nice little appearance last week. And then, maybe I'm interested to see how much David Moore would play again if Xavier is not able to play on Sunday. But I just think like if they can run the ball, and take some pressure off of that passing game. I think that's a great thing. Like I think it's a match that Carolina absolutely can win. I know they're not going to be favored because on the road and they're
Right.
the Panthers and Vegas is just not
They're
going
the
to favor
Panthers.
this
There you
team.
go. They're the Panthers. Exactly.
They're just not going to get favored until they like actually prove it to everyone outside of the city and even people inside of the city. I feel good about their chances on Sunday. I would. I'm not gonna say I ever expect them to win.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I expect them to play well. And I would think that this is a game that they should truly believe that they can go on the road and win one and steal one. Because here's the thing, like starting off three of the first four on the road, you had to find a way to at least steal one and hold serve at home. And like that's just where this team's at right now. They're just not at the talent level, at the experience level to expect that they're gonna have a and you should feel like you should beat. I think they got a good chance to win this game on Sunday. Just take care of the football and honestly make their own mistakes. And you should have the advantage on special teams as well. Like, and that's a facet that people forget all the time. You have an advantage on special teams with the kicker and Fitzgerald making kicks, and also what you're doing with the kickoffs, where that opponent's starting the ball at their own 15, their own 10. That's
Yep.
a huge advantage for you. So if they're going to go win special teams immediately, and if they can hold it down defensively again, like that's 2 out of 3, and you should feel pretty good about winning this game.
Julian, where can people find your work with Locked On Panthers and anything else you're doing?
Yeah, over on YouTube, Locked On Panthers, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, also Locked On Panthers. I'm over on social media at Julian Council on Twitter and Blue Sky. Don't really tweet or interact that much up there, but I'm still on there. So you can always hit me up there with any thoughts you have. Using my DMs, if you DM me, I'll answer and get to you, but not really doing the whole at because it's a cesspool and people are
Yeah.
crazy.
Absolutely. All right, last question for you, Julian. I know we're up against it. You
Sure.
for the Panthers this year, obviously, I'm not going to predict us to go to the Super Bowl. Everyone knows that whole narrative that was
Yeah,
out there. But, some people have already said, well, we lost to Jacksonville. That means we're going to go win it this time because, we
I've
beat
said that
Jacksonville.
too,
Yeah.
jokingly, of course.
Yeah, I know. But at the end of the year, when it's all said and done, 8 wins, 9 wins, out of the playoffs, into the playoffs, what what would it take for the majority of Panther fans outside of going to the Super Bowl, which we all know is probably unrealistic? What would it take for most Panther fans to say, okay, 2025 was a successful season in Carolina?
I think I don't think it really matters what the win-loss record is. I think, I mean, obviously it does to a certain degree,
Right.
but
To a certain degree, yeah.
like, what is the thing that everyone really wants to figure out this season? Is
Bryce Young.
what do you have in Bryce Young? Okay, so Bryce Young goes out there and he's able to perform like he did in the second half against Arizona, really the second half of last season, and you can finally get that consistency and help team win games. Like that's a success because now you go into the offseason, you can exercise fifth-year option, you can. I think they're probably not going to do an extension
Yeah, I don't think so.
because that's just not does not seem to be what they're looking to do here. They're waiting.
Now,
They're
if they
doing
go
a
win the Super Bowl, Julian, I think that would
yeah,
happen.
yeah,
Obviously. Yeah.
and that would change things. That would change things because then it would be honestly be wise for them to want to get an extension
Right.
done. But then for
Exactly.
Bryce's camp, it'd be like, nah, we're gonna wait and make that total go up. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it really just comes down to do you find out if you find out that Bryce Young is the guy, then like that's a success, even if it means you still miss out on the playoffs and maybe only win 7 games. Like if the defense struggles and everyone gets their wish, Jero Vero gets fired, but if Bryce is going out there and looking great in the process and your offense is moving the ball up and down the field, once the receivers get healthy and maybe get quarterback in whatever capacity they want him to play at some point in time this season, like that to me would be a success. Obviously, it's a team game. The win-loss record matters. But for where this organization's at right now, where I believe they're still building, and they have like what 12 rookies that were on the week 1 roster. Like this is a young football team,
Oh
man.
yeah.
Like figure out what you have in your quarterback, and if you got one, then like be excited about that because that's the one thing about I just think of especially the NFL when you just don't have that hope in who your quarterback is, like
You're
you're
in
lost. Like
purgatory.
look at the Vikings for I mean decades. Like when was the last time Minnesota really had a quarterback, like a long term guy?
Dante Culpepper.
Sure, but like I,
Maybe.
it's been I mean, maybe, but like that's been a long ass time, man. So and in Carolina, since Cam, you've been sitting here recycling guys, trying to figure out whether it's going to work out. Of course, Sam and Baker have had success elsewhere. I thought with Baker, they brought him in too late. He was never in a position to succeed in the first place.
No.
But it is what it is at this point in time.
Yep.
And and look how the fan base has reacted to it. All the quarterback change, not really having anything to really cling like real hope into. I mean, you can believe in Matt Corral if you want. I always thought that was insane.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like that would be the thing. Like actually figuring out that Bryce Young is the guy and is worth investing in. Like that's success to me, whether you go to the playoffs or not.
You created this 1B question really quick. You said Ajero Rivera,
Sure.
whether he gets canned, whether he gets brought back, that part doesn't really matter. But if, let's just say, for argument's sake, he either is let go or he chooses to walk off his expiring contract, do you think they would promote within, or do you think the Panthers would go outside and hire another defensive coordinator?
I would assume they'd go outside. It would probably be in like the Seattle tree of guys that they'd go out and get. I don't know who that would be.
Right, right.
But I doubt they promote within because a lot of these dudes that are here on the defensive side of the ball are Jero guys. So they probably wouldn't be sticking around, depending on how that plays out. But
Sure.
Dave Canales says he likes the scheme. So I don't know if they're going to be changing to a 4-3, and that would also mean some of the guys
Correct.
that they have drafted, like
Correct.
Uman Mielen, doesn't really fit the scheme, and then some of the
Right.
guys that they have signed as well probably don't fit the scheme anymore,
Right.
and then that's a whole like, you already saw like in from 18 to 19 they tried to build from a 4-3 to 3-4 and they had a terrible defense. So
Yeah.
it's not as simple as oh, let's just change back to a four-man front. Even though I've always been more of a 4-3 guy, I think probably
Same.
modern football
Same.
you got to be obviously more like multiple anyways. 3-4 probably makes more sense just how things have gotten to be. You need more smaller guys who can be more athletic. But yeah, like I think they probably go out of house if Ajero Vero's not the DC
Right.
after the season.
Yeah. Well, that'll wrap up episode 83 here of Inside the Vault. Julian Council has been our guest today here. Julian, all the best to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll talk to you down the road.
Yeah, thanks.
And that'll wrap up episode 83 of Inside the Vault, a Carolina Panthers podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Smith. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And we'll see you next time.